off in that direction. I think you'll find this will fall harmlessly to the side, like that. This piece is quite solid, but a lot of times there can be a hairline check in that and you wouldn't even see it. But from the centrifugal force, when you complete that cut, it's going to fly apart and it's going to go that way. Okay, now we've got it to the round shape. Advance it to the next hole in the index plate, tighten it, and we're ready to separate the first ring. Now we're backing that blade off and starting from the right to finish the cut. So now we've got our third piece, which is going to fit right on top of the vertical ring. And in this we look again for our angles. Our side grain is running this way, so I want this piece to run that way. So I have two options. Here I don't have the crisscross grain, so I want to reverse it 180 degrees. Again, keeping the side grain to side grain here. And now I have that crisscross grain again. So I find that reference mark, and in this case it's the single line opposite the double line reference. So you just put a straight line down from that point. Again, always double checking to make sure our side grain is in alignment, which it is. Now, this last piece I cut, because this was 180 degrees opposite our double line reference point, this piece is going to be marked at the double line reference point. And I think you'll find you'll keep side grain to side grain, and it'll give us our nice crisscross pattern. Okay. Complete the cut. I hesitated there for a second because I couldn't figure out why this one went all the way in for the depth of cut I needed, whereas the other one I couldn't do it, and it was because I still have this lock bar removed. So you can see it's still workable without that. It's just a nice feature to have, so that when you don't need to make that close-in cut, just by setting this back under there and putting it back on, give you a little added feature. It cuts down a little bit on the vibration. This is our excess stock, so now we take that off. And this piece I told you, if you mark it at the double line reference mark we had, that should give us our crisscross, which you can see it does. We're getting our nice crisscross pattern, and our side grain is all in alignment. Like that. Now, this is going to be our neck piece, which will be our last piece. The neck piece is going to go here. Then there's our top piece that we cut previous. That'll go there. This piece, again, mount it on. Tighten the nut. And go back to our our 0-degree angle. This is going to be a vertical ring. And now that I already know where the reference point is on this, remember we're not using a guide pin on vertical cut pieces, the end of the slide plate, the very back of it, is going to be aligned right at the top of the circle. And that'll give me my initial cut. That, so we'll do that. nicest part about the Ringmaster is that you have very minimal waste. This next cut is the tricky one that I want to point out to you. First of all, we get this aligned up again to the top of the next circle, so we have the right depth of cut. What you're going to find here is that coming in from the left, the tool holder here, where the blades are set into, is going to hit the edge of this spindle mount. And so what you want to do is start the cut, and you'll probably just be able to go in a little ways, and you want to stop it as you approach this, and don't continue that cut any further. Back it out, finish your cut on the right as far as the cut will go. Knock some of the wood chips away. There. So I made a complete cut there. Now stop it, center your blades again, back it out, and simply reverse your stock on the spindle. Take the nut and washer off, turn it around, like that. Slide this back in and start. You already made a partial cut on the left side, which is now on your right side. Line that up and start fitting your blade into where you made that cut. That'll show you precisely where you want to lock this at, so you got a true alignment. And now all I do is just finish your cut. And again, just go from the right-hand blade through. Just like that, and that's all there is to it, really. Loosen it up. There's our neck piece. Let me get this out of the way. Again, we want to keep our side grain to side grain and get it to where you got that crisscross pattern. So I got my side grain lined up. I want to use this reference line, which is going to be 90 degrees off of our double line reference line. So from that point, I'll draw the vertical line again with an arrow indicating up, like that. Lay it on there. You see the ring lines up nicely, and we're still getting that crisscross type of effect. Then our top piece, again, keep the side grain to side grain, and you got two options, and the first option I went for is the correct one. I got, again, that interwoven grain. So I find out where it's a single line that's 180 degrees opposite our double line reference point. So we'll mark it there. That on there. And see if we can get a look of it. So there's all our, we got our reference lines all made, and double check, make sure we got a nice pattern on it, which I think we do. Now we're ready for the next stage. We're ready for our next step, which is to sand the ring surfaces, because that's going to be your surfaces that are glued. Very important. And what I do here is I take the 12-inch circular disc sanding pads, the self-adhesive kind, and I get a 12-inch square piece of plywood. I believe this is about 1/2 inch thickness. It doesn't have to be real big. And just peel the backing off of this and tape the piece on there. The spring clamps are just to pretty much hold it from sliding around on you. Like that. So now we've got a nice firm surface. Now to start, what I do, turn the vase upside down and take the bottom piece, the inside of the bottom piece, and make a big lot of scribbly lines along all four sides, the end grain and the side grain. The reason for that is now we're going to sand it. A lot of times when a planer surfaces wood, you don't get a nice perfectly flush surface. If you don't have a perfectly flush surface, you're going to have a glue line. So this phase is very important in eliminating glue lines and making sure you have strong glued joints. So the way I like to do it is do it in a circular motion, and I do it from four sides. I'll again take a reference point. In this case, there's the way the grains run, and I'll use the side grain at the top there. I'll put that at 12 o'clock. And I'll just do this about 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then I'll rotate it 90 degrees. Now it's at 9 o'clock. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then at 6 o'clock. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then at 3 o'clock. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That should be enough to completely eliminate any pencil marks. If it doesn't, you know you need to sand more because you don't have it perfectly level. In this case, we did get rid of all the pencil marks, so we know we've got a nice, flat, perfect surface. That piece is done. The reason I do it on 4 sides is you just do it on 2 sides, no matter how good you are, you can't get perfect pressure evenly dispersed onto the sanding pad. And you'll sand one side faster than another side, and you'll get it lopsided. Or if you do it in 4 phases, it'll balance each other out in the long run. You'll get a nice level piece. Okay, ready for our vertical piece. And again, I'll get a reference point at 12 o'clock. This time I'll just do it 3 rotations ought to be enough because we're dealing with a lot less mass than we were on a base piece. Now I rotate at 9 o'clock, 3, 6, 3, 3 o'clock, 3. Then flip it over, find a reference point again, do the same thing. 3, 3, 3, 3. And then you can visually hold it up where you hit the light just right. It should be all the same color tone. If you see a dark or a shiny spot, then that's an indication that maybe there was a little bit of a dip there and it didn't get sanded smooth, and you can go over it again. But this looks like it's consistently sanded rough all the way around. Next thing to do, you forget which side was up, you got your arrow. Make sure when you line back up that you got your arrow pointing upward, like that. Okay, so anyhow, the rest of the rings, we're all going to do the same way. We're going to do 3 at 4 different positions. Flip it over. 3 at 4 different positions. Now we're on our last top ring here. Do it to just the bottom side. The top side, of course, won't be a glue surface. So now we've got our vase, the reference lines, so we can make sure it's still in the same alignment, and all the surfaces that are going to be glued are sanded nice and smoothly. We don't need the glue board anymore, but while I'm looking at it, one thing I want to mention is that I didn't touch on is it's a coarse grit. It's about a 50 grit. 50 to 60 grit would be most ideal for sanding these. Although I've used other grits, I've used finer grits, but it'll fill up and wear down faster. Now what we want to do before we glue these together is one of the most critical aspects of this technique, and that's getting it balanced. What I have here is a real hard, solid, flat piece of wood, and I use that as a base. And